everyone. Hi, Evan. I'm back in my backyard studio. How are you?
You're back in your backyard studio in Ottawa, and I'm
That's right.
back in my office at home.
All right. So, what have we been looking at this week in the municipal campaign that apparently nobody else is noticing? There's just like the two of us keen on it
I
and
think,
nobody else.
it's a bit uncanny. That's probably the wrong word. It just seems it's summer now, and you can't really tell that there's an election unless they give you a flyer in your mailbox or you get a knock on the door. As I mentioned, I think last week or the week before, I've only gotten one knock on the door to my knowledge, and that was from the Leaper campaign. So that was 2 weeks ago. And I've received a flyer from the Neil Saravanamutu campaign. But I have not been contacted by the Lawson campaign. So I don't know if the Lawson
Yeah.
campaign has is campaigning in the Capital Ward yet or in our neighborhoods yet. They may be, but I
Hmm.
think what's interesting is that you can't really tell how you can't tell the relative power of the ground games because we're not in all 24 wards. I mean, we don't have an intelligence system to tell
Hmm.
us from 24 wards what's happening. And so the only people that really know what's going on are the campaign managers, right?
So, I wanted to say first of all that I had a very exciting sign of a not a sign on the front lawn, but
Yeah.
somebody wearing a T-shirt for a
Oh,
campaign. I saw that it was a T-shirt for Neil because I saw it because it's very. I mean, both Neil and Jeff are very visible,
yes.
like Jeff, right, and Neil, and so this guy had a Neil T-shirt, and it was in front of the Walmart on Baseline and near Maryvale,
Okay.
which was surprising to me to see someone, just a guy walking on the sidewalk on
Well,
Baseline
okay.
wearing a Neil T-shirt. I thought, yay, somebody
Wearing
else
a
is
Neil
noticing there's a
T-shirt.
campaign.
Some,
Possibly is someone volunteering on his campaign for all I know.
right.
Um, yeah, and I was chatting with someone on the Lawson campaign this week who was saying that Alex Lawson is very active campaigning, canvassing, and I've asked to be able to tag along, and I just want to go and observe and not be annoying, just to observe. I want to see how people react to him
Yeah.
and
No.
how what they're talking about, what's important to them. I'm always curious about that, and I've especially asked to be able to go when he's visiting wards that went for Sutcliffe heavily
That's
last time around, because
well.
I want to see what these people have to
Yeah,
say. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, that in I
Mhm.
think in police parlance is called a ride along.
That's it.
So,
So,
so
and
you
I'm
want
going to ask the same of all the other candidates as well. I really am curious to see how people react to them, and I've done that with Bruce Vanjoy last federal election, and that was
okay.
really a lot of fun to see because
So
you never really know, right, what
so
people are going to tell you.
will, will you go with the canvassers to the door, or will you just observe from the sidewalk while the canvasser goes to the door?
So it varies by house. The way I did it with Bruce Vanjoy last time was that, and remember, there was a difference because I was working with Bruce
That's
to
right.
get
Yeah.
him elected. In this case, I'm going to try and stay as neutral as possible.
Mhm.
It's difficult, but is to stay. It depends on the house, depends on the setup, but I want to be close enough to hear, but not so close that I feel like people feel like they have to talk to me, or I'm not on the campaign. I'm there to observe. So
So
it will vary a little bit, but yeah, no, I don't mean to be. I want to observe without interfering. How about
right.
that?
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I was going to bring that up and say that I intend to do that as well because I'd like
Yeah.
to know. I mean, I think we spoke last week. I'd like to know and some of it I will just do independently, and some of it I will do with a campaign. But I really want to. I don't think we can really talk about what's going on if we don't see it from the ground at the ground level.
That's right. Because we may think that we're very smart and very good observers of the
Yeah.
scene, but there's nothing like talking to actual people
You
to
know,
know what they're thinking.
and if you hit 300, 400 doors, I'm not saying that's what you're going to hit, but if you hit someone as a ride along, campaign ride along, hits 300 to 400 doors in a ward, it's not going to be a probability sample. You can't generalize anything like that, but it's a pretty good signal
Hmm.
of what could be going on in
That's
that
right.
ward.
That's right. So interestingly, I just, and then we'll get back to that and the fact that we're in the middle of a what you call the phony war. For
Well,
kids, if you don't know what that means, ask your parents, right?
yeah, I
Because the
think
reference to
if
the
you don't
second
know what
war.
that means, just ask Claude or
Yes.
ChatGPT, do phony war and World War II, and
Yes,
it'll tell
exactly.
you exactly what the phony war
Uh-huh.
was.
I mean, I got it because I'm a World War II buff, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's gonna, I'd like to know. Well, I guess I asked you in one of my emails to you earlier today, Bridget. What do you recollect from the summer of 2022?
Hmm.
What was the tone like and the political temperature of that campaign in
Hmm.
June and July of 2022? So this would have been an open contest. This would have
Exactly.
been
That's the
Mark
difference.
Sutcliffe had just filed his nomination papers on June 22nd. So Bridget, do you recollect what was it like in July and August of 2022?
I remember that there was more interest in the campaign than there is now, and I think the fact that it was an open, it was a wide open as a race, I think made a difference. I think there was also a lot more Watson fatigue 4 years ago than there is Sutcliffe fatigue at this point. Just math, right? Like
That's just
Jim Watson had been there longer, and there were more issues. Let's just put it this way. I mean, as Sutcliffe would tell you right now, it was toxic, right? Remember?
right. That's what he
Uh,
said.
and I don't think that you have the same vibe today, even from people who are disappointed with Mark Sutcliffe's performance as mayor. So I'm not feeling any anxiety now compared to like last time. There was a sense of something almost exciting could be happening here,
Right.
and this time, no, not really. I'm not seeing that at all.
Well,
Yeah,
look, as you know,
not yet. Anyway.
the conventional wisdom is that high turnout is bad for the incumbent and good for the challenger.
Hmm.
And to get high turnout, usually there has to be some voter outrage. I'll just use the word outrage. They have to be motivated. Maybe
There's
not.
has to be a reason. That's
There
right.
has to
So
be a
when
good reason. And if there isn't a really good reason, now you don't have to call it outrage, but just a
right
very good reason,
there you go.
that favors Mark Sutcliffe. See that
Hmm.
that's part of the incumbency advantage. Right?
And how do you generate that? Um, Desire of people to want to go and cast a ballot. I mean, there's different ways. First of all, you can wait until the incumbent makes a mistake or generates some kind of anger, has a scandal.
No,
I don't
that
think with
that
Mark's like you can wake up at night to hate Mark Sutcliffe all you want.
right.
You will not find a skeleton in that guy's closet.
Okay.
He doesn't even party at parties. Like there's not even there's nothing there.
Well,
Um,
if you say
yeah,
so,
I mean, it's
I
he's just as a I mean, I don't see everything, but there's nothing to suggest that there's the possibility of any kind of scandal of any sort with Mark Sutcliffe. So
so in
that
that
leaves
case,
what, right? Dissatisfaction
right.
with the state of affairs,
So
affordability, the state of the roads and sewers and sidewalks, pools that are closing. We
schools,
could
yeah.
talk about that in a second. Infrastructure that's crumbling. Lansdowne is one issue that's going to get some people very motivated to go and vote.
Yeah.
But is that going to amount to a
Well,
wave?
well, we come back to the importance of the ground game.
Hmm.
And this is, I keep on coming back to that because in the absence of outrage, voter outrage, in the absence of any real scandal attaching itself to the incumbent mayor, then it really depends on whether, Stephen Yardy is Jeff Leeper's, in the case of Jeff Leeper's campaign, if Stephen Yardy, his campaign manager, has been mounting, can mount an unprecedented ground game. So
Hmm.
something that Ottawa has never seen before because there's no outrage to mobilize people. So it really comes down
Right.
to the door knocking and putting all those unique email addresses into a database
Mm.
and sweeping through neighborhoods and confirming who will vote for you, who is leaning towards you, and knowing by September that you've got 60,000 unique addresses that have told you over the course of the last 6 months that they're voting for you. You
So, I was going to say, unless this campaign redefines municipal politics. And here's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's me dreaming in colors, because that's something I would love to see. Instead of having a traditional campaign where, as you said, a higher voter turnout is typically justified by or motivated by a scandal or deep dissatisfaction, widespread
Yes.
dissatisfaction, which I don't think I'm seeing. Maybe campaigns can make a difference by actually going to talk to people. And I know I get back to this playbook a lot because I've seen it work in Bruce Vanjoy's case, but how often do you have, like, I haven't seen anybody, excuse me, I have not seen anybody knock on my door yet. But excuse me, there are a lot of people who will tell you in a campaign that they will often, if they're undecided, they will often go for the person who bothered to show up at their door.
I think you're right.
And I'm hoping for something like that this time around.
Well, this is my
Let me put myself on mute and cop this thing out.
okay.
All right.
So that's why I've come back in my columns and my discussions with people. I come back over and over again to the ground game,
Mhm.
the knocking on the door, those what we call neighbor to neighbor conversations.
Correct.
And can you multiply that by tens of thousands of conversations? And for that, you have to have a machine.
That's
And
right.
what I'm looking for are signs that the Leaper campaign, that any of the campaigns have these large machines. So I think what we can dispense with now, Brigitte, is the idea that there's going to be some Mamdanification of any of these
Yeah,
candidates.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
so.
that's going to happen.
We don't have a candidate like that
We don't
anyway.
have a candidate like that. That's not going to happen. Even if we had hoped there would be some candidate like
Hmm.
that,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Hmm.
So, in the absence of that, what some people call it a political unicorn, right? It's so rare.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yes.
Obama, Barack Obama, and Zoran
Even
Zadev,
Bill Clinton before him.
and
Bill
Bill
Clinton
Clinton
pulled
before
something
that.
off like that. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
there aren't going to be any of these local Ottawa mayoral political unicorns. So
We're not
now,
that exciting. No,
no.
nothing.
So it's going to be the ground game and which
Hmm.
campaign, and the onus will then be on the challenger campaigns because the mayor can just rest on he controls the attention economy, so he can kind of rest if the polling allows him to. He can
Mm.
just deploy a classic front runner campaign, but it really the onus is on the challengers and
Hmm.
their machinery on the ground.
So I'm just going to push back on one aspect of
Okay.
what you said there, because you said if the polling lets him sit back a little bit. I don't think the polling does, because what the campaign, the challenger campaigns, not just the Lawson campaign, but others have pointed to the high number of undecided
Yes,
at this
true.
point. And are these people undecided because they don't know who to vote for? Or are these people undecided because they've already decided not to vote for Sutcliffe? They're just not sure who to vote for instead of Sutcliffe, right? There's different kinds of
Absolutely.
undecided.
Yeah.
So we may be, and I'm not running anybody's campaign, but if I was running Mark Sutcliffe's campaign, I would say, do not take a single person for granted ever, not a single minute. Like you are not, fight like you're in second position. That's what we used to say. And I'm a competitive fighter, so that's
Yeah.
kickboxing. That's what we always used to say: compete and fight like you're in second. Never fight like you're in first, because that's how you lose. But here's the other thing: if you had campaigns right now doing what we're talking about, this ground game early on,
Mhm.
talking to people, trying to get people organized, how would you see that? How
Well,
would you see that?
well,
Maybe we wouldn't.
I've been again musing to myself and talking openly about it. I've talked, for the last 6 months. I referenced the fall, where I said
Mm,
I think if Jeff Leeper loses this race, so there will undoubtedly be many reasons. But if it's a close race,
hmm
at the end, I will point back to the fall of 2025, so 6 months ago, 8 months ago, where I didn't feel his presence.
mm.
Because I would have thought, and maybe they did, and maybe Stephen Yardy, as the campaign manager, did, he needs 3,000 people on the ground now, going into September. Does he have
Across
3,000? Yeah,
evenly
across the
distributed.
24
Okay.
wards.
Hmm.
But I was thinking, just do the math, Bridget. They could last year, let's say post August, from August on, Jeff Leeper declared he was going to challenge the mayor in July. So he had the entire fall, but I'm sure he and Stephen Yardy had been planning this before. I mean, I don't think they decided that he was going to run
It
from
was
there.
not an overnight decision.
Yeah, it
No,
was not an overnight. He didn't
clearly. Yeah.
decide in July
Yeah.
he was gonna run. So they probably had most of 2025 to get their ducks in position.
Hmm.
And I don't think it would be unreasonable to assume that they could have found 70 to 100 people in each of those 24 wards last year. That's
Mm.
already 2,400 people. That's already 2,400 people
But
off the bat.
that's doable, right?
I
It's
think that is doable. I have a sneaking suspicion. It's unproven. Only Stephen Yardy knows. I'm not sure they had 2,400
mm.
volunteers already mobilized, ready to go. It didn't feel like they had that in the fall. Maybe they're holding them back. Maybe they did. But I think if it turns out that they didn't, and it's a close race at the end, I will be pointing back to my concerns
Mm.
that they didn't
Yeah.
have that mobilized volunteer force in place in late 2025.
So
Because
here's my, yeah.
I think they need 3,000 people on the ground across the
But
24 wards.
if they had numbers close to that or
Yeah.
that kind of number, would they deploy would they use these people like right now? How do you keep people motivated? Because that's a long campaign,
Yeah.
right? You're talking about starting last year for
Yeah.
the following October.
Yeah.
That's long, and it's hard to keep people interested and
Yes.
motivated during that kind of time.
I
So how
I
do you keep them motivated, but also keep them for when it really matters, which is when the majority of people in Ottawa start paying attention
oh
to the
I'm not
campaign, which is
saying
not going to be until
right.
August this year,
I'm not
right?
saying that these 23,000 people or 2,500 people were knocking doors last year, but and maybe maybe they were all there ready to go, and when they launched the campaign in February, they had already been contacted, and those 2,400 people already on the streets and in neighborhoods. And if that's the case, that's great, because I definitely
Hmm.
think that they need that level of mobilization. That's the minimum level of mobilization that they need, because they have to take down Mark Sutcliffe's margins of victory in the outer suburbs and the rural wards. Um,
Well, I'm just going to say that if there's a campaign manager who wants to tell us about their ground game already, it would like my email is really
I don't
available.
think.
Let me
I
know.
don't
Like,
think. I
I'd love
think
to
there's
hear it.
certain. I think there's certain things that regarding
They won't
tactics
talk. They will keep like
that
this here. Yeah.
will remain secret and should remain secret. Keep
Oh,
everybody guessing.
but I want
Um,
to know.
but certainly, my supposition is that if Stephen Yardy, as the campaign manager, has been able to mobilize an unprecedented ground game, and if Alex Lawson is able to reduce Mark Sutcliffe's margins
Hmm.
in the 8 southeastern and southern wards, those two conditions have to exist together for Jeff Leeper to have a chance at becoming mayor. Take any of those two conditions away, and his prospects become dimmer. But if those two conditions do exist as we speak, then anything's possible,
Mm.
and that's bad. And that would be bad news for the mayor, because then, as you said, he really does need to be fighting this out like he's fighting from second
Oh,
position.
that's what I would do regardless. Like he'd never
Right.
want to take anything for or anybody for granted. People hate being taken for granted.
Yeah.
That's one big lesson in politics. Ask Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
Not that he would notice because he does not seem to admit his mistakes. But
Right.
never mind. That's not about him. One thing that's gonna just as a last topic. One thing that's I think may hurt the mayor is infrastructure crumbling, the deficit. And like there was the news of that pool, that outdoor
Yeah.
diving pool in Bell's Corners, which I did not know existed. It looks like a cool pool
Yeah.
actually
No, it's interesting.
outside. And for, this kind of stuff that regular people use and depend on. And they closed because, in this case, there was some safety. The pool had deteriorated. I can speak English.
Right.
Deteriorated to such an extent that it was becoming a safety
Yeah.
issue. Who does that? I mean, it's hard. It's an awful question to ask, but like, an issue like that, it's bad for Mark Sutcliffe, but who gets to benefit from that politically?
Well, the challengers, because it points to
All three? Yeah.
the
Hmm.
infrastructure debt. I think you mentioned last week it was
Hmm.
229. Is it 229 million? But it's 10 billion over whatever it is, several
Hmm.
decades going forward. And so it raises the question, the uncomfortable political question about whether we should be we should be paying for those infrastructure upgrades through our Ottawa budget or through a levy, an extra tax. See,
Hmm.
it puts that conversation on the agenda, and that allows you at the doors to say, so how do you feel about
About
having
paying more taxes.
paying more taxes?
Hmm.
And of course, the person at the door is going to be thinking, "But I already pay high taxes. Why am you?" And shouldn't that infrastructure repair be paid out of our current tax base? And why are you charging me again? So that gets people agitated.
Hmm. No, I understand that, and I think that there's you can point to not just this council. It's unfair to put all of this on Mark Sutcliffe because he wasn't there for the whole 20
Sure.
years and
Yeah.
30 years and maybe 50 years during which we neglected upkeep and repairs. And that's not just at the municipal level. That's a pan Canadian. I wrote a book about this in 2003, and it was true then, and it's still true now. And I'm upset with this because nobody paid attention. But it still remains the case that he's the guy in charge now, and it's unfair, but he's the one who's going to take the brunt of the people's disappointment over this. We don't really talk about it, right? That's the issue, is that everyone has their opinion as to who should pay for what, but we have not had this kind of broader conversation at the level of the city. And it feels like everyone's trying to pull the blanket in their own direction, and then no decisions. It's almost like 24 Sussex, which is in the news this week, because
Right.
finally we're going to do something about it. But it's one of those, we've never really had the grown-up conversation about these issues, and I think it's high time we had it, but I'm still
Well,
waiting for
I
someone to
think
to start it.
it goes to the heart of this idea that Ottawa residents deserve the lowest tax increases in the province.
Mm.
But we all know that those our tax increases are artificially low.
But do
And
people know this? See, that's what I'm saying. We don't realize that
right.
as a
So because
society.
you'll notice the mayor keeps touting and promoting the fact that he has kept these taxes very low. The tax increases, the annual tax is very
Yeah,
low,
and he has. That's
and he
true.
has. But at the expense of what something has to give, as they say. And if your diving pools and your recreation arenas are closed for the year because of they need structural repairs, that should point a finger at the conversation that hasn't happened. But it's
Mm.
a highly politicized conversation for obvious reasons. And
Right.
so I think Alex Lawson, he's talking about, as I recall from his campaign platform, about fair taxes. I think fair is the word he uses. But the
Hmm.
mayor, drawing from Jim Watson's playbook, talks about low or lowest taxes of any
Hmm.
major
Or
municipality,
affordable.
and
Yeah,
and
he,
and
he
that
he
is
ties that to affordability.
that and ties it to affordability, and it's his core message to the suburban households, right? Because
Well, they
everybody
have
knows
nice pools because their pools are newer,
that's
right?
right.
And that's
Yes,
unfair to
right.
talk about it this way. But if you live in Barhaven and you have this brand new, was it the Richcraft or Minto or
Right,
whichever
right,
one
right,
it is, well, you have beautiful new infrastructure
right.
because they're newer. And do you want to pay more so that older neighborhoods get, like, it's just an it
Yeah.
sounds like, well, these are terrible people, they don't want to pay for our pools, but would we want to pay for their pool, right? It's just a
Yeah.
natural human reaction until you've had that conversation as grown-ups to say, here's why everyone's paying more, because it's fairness and equity and
Well,
blah blah blah, and being transparent about it, then it
Brid-
becomes each man for himself,
Bridget,
and
don't you
that's
remember
ugly.
what Kim Campbell said way back when,
Yeah.
about.
Elections are not for serious issues.
That's right. Campaigns
And
is not where you discuss policy, or
mm,
whatever her words were to that
I think
effect.
it was serious issue.
Serious
Well, I'll
issue.
find it. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I'll put the
Right?
clip
And
somewhere.
everybody jumped up and down and said, "Oh my
Yeah,
God,
she
what
was
are you
right.
saying? Are
Mm.
you trying to kill yourself politically?" But yeah,
And she did. Yeah, in fairness, she did.
for many other
For,
many reasons.
yeah, many other reasons. Yeah.
But but but
Um,
but that does, yeah. So can you talk about? I mean, interesting. Jeff Leeper wants this to be a policy discussion,
mhm.
and while you and I are policy wonks,
Nerds,
and we're happy
obsessed.
to have, yeah, no, we're happy to have a policy discussion. We know that campaigns are not always about policy. They're about feelings, right? Confidence
Mm.
and trust in an individual. And so I worry, even as a policy person myself, that if you try to make your campaign posture all about policy, um, um, voters will not, they don't want a policy debate, or the people we may talk to on a day-to-day basis may want a policy debate, but the other 350,000 Ottawa residents, they just want to think that something will get fixed. They just want to have trust in the system, right? At City Hall. And so I'm concerned that if you're going to make it just about policy, your campaign might get into trouble.
Sigh. You're right. I know you're right, and it's just disappointing to me because I wish we had more policy. But what can you do? Canada Day is coming up
Yeah.
next Wednesday, so I think I don't know what you're doing, but if I can manage, and if the weather's nice enough, because I'm a little bit of a wuss, I don't want to go if it's raining, but maybe I'll swing by some of the where the campaigns are going to be, and I don't know, see how
Oh, it's
people are feeling.
the
That would be a good
barbecues.
idea, right? The
Do people
barbecues.
do the camp again? Recalling 2022, Bridget, were the campaigns in full flight on Canada Day? Were the camp?
I bumped out because I was with Bruce Banjoy
Yep.
at Riverside South on Canada Day, and we bumped into Mark Sutcliffe there.
Okay.
No, so that was last year. So no,
No,
what am I talking? See, I
2022.
can't do math. You should never ask me
No,
to do
no,
math on the fly
2022.
because this was 2024.
Yeah,
No,
2022.
2023 when the first time I went. So yeah, he was already mayor.
Yeah,
Oh, I have terrible memories and worse math. Anyway,
it's
just
okay.
ignore
Yeah,
that part.
so I'm looking forward to seeing the ground game. Like you, I want to do a campaign ride along.
Yes. So invite me, people. I want to go.
All right.
All right. So I'll talk to you next week, and maybe we'll compare hot dog stories, or maybe we'll
Absolutely.
bump into each other on the, on the barbecue circuit. Okay.
Happy
Have a
Canada Day,
great week.
Bridget. Bye bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.